Back in my hometown, me out.
Are there? Is this thing on? Testing. Can you hear me back there? All the way in the back? Cool. How about the virtual audience? Hey, do you want to say something?
Thanks for coming out for this tonight or this afternoon, and yeah, supporting Archway and Gabe's and book. And we have some, if you'd like some, and some other ones and bookmarks for free. So thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming. And thanks for, here later than maybe you expected. Ultimately, and normal. When I ran a reading series, it was always at least half late. You were there. I remember you. You were there. It feels like a lifetime ago. I am really happy to be doing this with the people that are here to celebrate the books that came out over the last year. This is my book. I'm going to take the first slot, and then I'm going to, I think, do the duty of hosting the rest of the reading and introducing people. So I should thank some people. Emily, I neglected to thank you the first time we launched this about 6 months ago, actually, which is weird. And Nicole Eisenman for this amazing cover, and Chris and Nick for being my editors and putting it out. And then God and my mom. All right. This book is called Acid VIRGA. It's kind of about, VIRGA is like a term for rain that doesn't fall fully to the ground. It's about ups and downs, really elemental. And this poem is, I wanted to read it on May Day, which I did actually get to read it on May Day. And it's called Tape for the End of April. And yeah, I won't say anything more about it. Say I'm falling in love, or that I'm falling to pieces. Say the words, don't go to work, are like an obeyed always on the tip of my tongue. That today is a day like any other, like February, the poem, but called April. So not so full of hidden pinks, but all too obvious champagne blossoming magnolias, and the sky a delft blue bowl coming down around us instead. The coffee poured, the grapefruit cut, the picnic set, the big hand stuck. Say that just like yesterday, scenes like this repeat, like the lazy last days in a toile factory, a surplus of cirrus, like sheer linen unlooming above us. While we who are forever high in the late Renaissance style barely, if ever, touch the ground as we tiptoe through the tulips on Mannerist feet and Rococo cupids compass our heads. Yes, say I'm falling to pieces, that always in motion, still in motion, little mortal paranoias get the best of me when you're behind your desk, and I don't want to, and I don't want you to die. Say you'll bury me in velvet, press my carbon into diamonds when I do, or press rewind before I ever cross that threshold, before you cross that bridge, before you ever leave me pedaling out onto gates like you always do. I want to be carried back through the hours in a cloud of fiery pale chemicals, over the water and vinegar hill, past the steam-spitting pipes of the Navy Yard, the candy and confectionery workers' local, and dirt bath of daffodils in the neighbor's yard. Beyond the Walt Whitman projects and the bordello on Washington, then up, fingers finding buttons, back to bed to smoke between naps and over takeout. Is Salvation Army open on Good Friday? A message from my desk to yours. What better day to pick out new outfits than bike to Fort Tilden to take them off again? Then you send me if I needed you, and I need to know, is it true he used a needle to shoot Coca-Cola straight into his arm? Then I send you, you send me and go for a walk, looking as always for things in the city you've never held in your hands. For you, I stole a grimed over orange railway light bulb right from the socket, collected a few fragments of subway stalactite in front of a man reading human, all too human on the platform. Are we not going to do it, or are we? I say. I want to play hooky with you now. If not, it's Easter this weekend. Let's eat acid and bike to the cloisters. You could wear that black crepe dress you bought for holiday parties, and we can visit the room with all the Marys, drenched in blues, holding Christs. Then I send you a little poem called Mandorla and the nebula of Botticelli's Primavera. How's it in? Fractals unfurl from within the heathen Madonna. That's something close to how I felt when we came so close on New Year's Eve, a spectral lacework repeating out from behind your head. Yes, I'm falling in love. Yes, say I'm falling in love, that I'm falling to pieces, that we sleep on the floor on a mattress while half my family goes suddenly homeless, that the only room that's furnished is a closet brimming with 100 dresses, that all the while I've been feeling precarious, but keeping it private, risking my neck, but making it comic, eating my mask and abandoning logic, feeling sublime, I've been having a gas, falling and laughing and gasping for breath, that all your dresses make me jealous, that it's because I'm in love, I think about death, why, shadow into heat, I'll feel kissed on the neck, riled like a cat even after you're gone, and all the silks you wear have been worn down to rags. But what I'm really trying to say is, it's the sum of days in the city, lying in the High Lines grass, watching men walk by holding hands, all the yogis and labor doulas of the Upper East Side pushing prams through Central Park, the dozen rides to be being photographed at every hour under weeping willows along the reservoirs, all the accountants threshing their digits in the downtown high-rises, the CEOs pissing on pink urinal cakes in the comic rush of the automatic flusher as they walk away. It's all of us spliced together into the beige Mondrian. Broadway's choked cubicle blues, the Musette, Ersatz jazz, the blitzkrieg klezmer of the Xerox copier. It's me in a box in the sky, working, playing DJ for Peruke Rock Radio Hour, predicting Mortito will be the word of the year, dear listener. And it's all of the bodies behind cash machines, sighing as one as they shift their weight from heel to heel, humming, long while, long Zeit, long while, long Zeit, with boredom never deep enough. It's a knowing that it, all of it, will end, that makes me want to move through the city with you as blurs of sunlight goldly invent a new conjunctive, unpinning their name tags and unknotting their aprons, lacking all buttons, undoing all decency as we walk out to the golden echo of the exit bell's chime. We're together for now amid the panoply of glass and apple wax asterisks solarizing every surface, will be torn limb from limb as the f-stop of the avenue opens past aperture. The apple wax asterisks always gets me when I get to the end of the poem and I don't have enough saliva in my mouth to make S sounds. Is there water? I don't know. I'll be fine. What else should I think that I'm going to read from Regression, and I'm going to keep it on the theme of spring. And Regression is a poem that kind of is an elegy, I guess, but it falls back through the years, so it goes in reverse. So it's starts in the fall and then it goes to summer and so on. Based or inspired by Lorraine Nideker's poem Progression, which is about forward movement in time. And I'm going to read from the spring parts because because it's spring and we've got a little bit of spring left, right? Just a couple more days and then it'll be summer and then I'll read from the summer parts. Question: what's the saddest music in the world? Answer: it's either me singing Sign of the Times cover to cover, or all of the times someone like you has wondered, but how much survives? How much of any one of us survives? Seemingly granting us all permission to hate ourselves less. 3:22 of a Thursday, arriving at the pearly gates via perverse kinesis. Prince has died. And I remember when the playlist labeled Paradise was empty, as if only briefly, everything ceased being everything, yet the record's dark arrondissement went on spinning anyway, even after the needle had lifted. Imagine murmuring, "Goodbye, cruel world," then leaving behind a vault of silently blistering solos. Goodbye, and a selfie in a 16th century vanity or a saint's flayed skin. Alone, reading dirty poem, it's clear the body has enough to reckon with within itself. Sugars foaming in the pulp, the invisible apothecary brewing its own alcohols, etc. But the doctor's explanation is simple, if enigmatic. The silver palomino, pent up and anxious, dances as if on stilettos, nipping at her flanks till she bleeds. As if hacking her own nervous system, she floods her enormous body with wine. Spring. The pH levels in the soil are on my mind. AC units on warmish spring days, dripping dew down onto kudzu, black acorns, the winds combed out, rotting. It's nasty dirt to grow anything in, but with plenty of acid, the hydrangeas are a creamy sapphire in that corner and a basic purple where there's none. Their corums drift without fixity. Every time I look up names for clouds, I find a new one. The latest, nacreous, means mother of pearl, pigeon neck purple, or gill of trout. Was it only yesterday I watched our new neighbors replace the cupid in the garden with a skull? Spring. It's Easter this weekend, and today it seems that even these bodies we carry with us hang around us like a burden of flowers. These emblems that provoke us to speak in the pastel codes of grief, of how the bloom is off the red rose and the carnation, of Narcissus' infinite recursive consumption and Asphodel's Elysian fields, of the bruises like forget-me-nots stippling a loved one's skin, and of Io's crater's quiet crocus, the clabber of topographic salts on the sheets, this ecology of hidden engines that drives us through the mornings and the times between to sweeten the reed with spit, the acrid clef, to sing the song of the anemone, the anemic, the melancholic at the window, to contemplate the ever-blooming amaranth of In's womb, in which a cyst the size of a dahlia quietly grows. Hey, wait. All right, one more. And this is summer, so this is the next phase we're about to enter, the new season. Awake before I mean to be, feeling religious when I don't want to be, surveying the ephemera of my life, the Xerox poems and books I have but haven't read, the few scraps of handwritten mornings torn out to stuff my pockets with, memorize and toss out, the notebooks filled with X's struck through lengthy strophes on ticks and nervy twitching, as if I could redact the surge of yin, compose an ode instead to the pathetic fallacy which defines my life. To the bluster of irrational winds, the bludgeoning, brutish light of summer, to winters lived for magenta, twilight eyelids and keyhole tans when you blink, and to spring. To April and the promise of lines as endless and recursive as scenes on toile, sublingual, yanked in a smooth stream from the throat, as of school where the heart belongs. To bright bolts inscribed with Cupid shrines and fountainheads with frothing arcs of never falling water, ruffling the air, waiting, yes, a helical furl of electrical woad, a funerary shroud with arabesques you can bury me in. But in the meantime, another season wants to come and change the contents of my blood again. I can feel it. Is there a better way to put it? No, the body's air's oars, not a luxury. It's a luminous shadow, always there. For what but the tips of the fingers, the tip of the tongue is a locus of luxury. What but the eye is the house of taste, filigreed with phonemes. Like the dark oak outside my window, its inner creaking and the leaves that hush it. When new light fills it, it moves the way a river does, mimicking itself. Dark leaves and leaf-cut light, each time new, yet somehow always the same. How the words dissipate as soon as they leave your lips. Slow time, but cannot reverse it. Hi, Murphy. You can let him go. This is Murphy. Thank you for listening to me read. Thank you. Next up, we have Nat Ward, the author of Big Throat, photographer extraordinaire. You should definitely take a look at I'm sure you'll be able to see them at a distance, but the photographs inside are also gorgeous. And my whole shtick tonight was going to be that I would read the blurbs on the back of people's books as a way to introduce them, but there's no blurb.
I have no blurbs.
No blurbs. So what are you going to do? All right, Nat Ward, everyone.
Thanks, Gabe. And thank you, everyone who's come out. Really excited to be here. And this is the first chance I've had to read from this. Big Throat was published in October. And as a little bit of context, since a significant portion of the book is in fact full bleed photographs integrated with the text. The photographs were made on the Rio Grande Gorge Bridge, which is near Taos in New Mexico and is anywhere between 600 and 750 feet above the bottom of the gorge. And there's a small path you can go across, feel completely disoriented and dislocated, and also thrown off your sense of balance anytime a truck goes by because the whole bridge undulates. But it is a place where, for better or worse, death is kind of infinitely present and possible, to the point where there are suicide helpline call boxes every 30 or so feet. And so within the space of the poem, there are fragments of scripture. And that scripture was taken from the scripture that was written like graffiti on the suicide helpline call boxes. So it starts with one of those. When I am afraid, I will put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. There's evidence of passing through. There's air that can't move that's left behind. A Stetson open road glued, arrested in dirt and weeds down where these pillars disappear. 2 crutches launched, left on the canyon floor instead of whichever body found them useful. Tangled neurons of speaker wire hold down a rock that moves, only in increments, only in geologic time. Half a refrigerator bungled itself open, prostrate and languid. Why the rush to believe this obliquity was enough? No truth in these questions, only in the weight of idleness thrown off and down. 700 odd feet through open space to a bottom. This cut through the mesa is full of past people, dotted with their stubbornness and their facts. I'm alone, unshowered and expansive, tossing expletives on the road. There's coffee, fat, salt, some crumbling thing I wanted more for, dulling sharp angles for absorption, for overwhelming stale skin. I can feel it just under my chin, in a kind of weight behind my eyes. It's nearly 6 in the morning, and I'd rather taste the dirt of the riverbed. I'd rather grind my teeth on the canyon wind. In the blasted lines of light in this morning, I want tall boy burnouts and permanent migraines, bleached irises and skin stretched rough across cheekbones. I want the ceaseless pursuit of degenerative compulsions, the clarity that gnawing desire affords. I quit smoking years ago. Instead, there are quarry trucks pushing a mountain over there, wanting and moving a gaping picture of some lonesome cruelty, an annihilation of self so earnest it disarms. It's a close companion of violence that loves America this way. We got this rental truck out of want for recrement and out over speed bumps under steam trails, a temporary resident of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and I guess another airport lot somewhere in Texas, to shuttle a cabin full of our breath over this desert. It's overkill of empty headroom, potential vectors, and churning speed. We are not very large people. The dial on the dashboard stops, count the velocity of free fall, and behind the safety glass, I slam a white brick against the wind. It's all smooth surfaces rushing into a periphery of collapsed desire, producing desire, producing desire. What silly arrogance, what sweet, indulgent destruction. The sublime container so filled, lousy with all the exhilarations of nihilism's rich fuel between us. Fears hidden so preciously in a disaster. Those secrets to shatter if shared. We wanted to be temporarily bigger than we are. My wife is pregnant with our first child, and I'm looking for my shadow hanging off a guardrail. What do I leave? And what do I leave behind? The span bucks, sways, rolls, shudders. This concrete river above, hemmed in metal, does not rush but howls. Shakes like a dad yelling, groaning wild, under each family gone, under 5 lines of tires for every quarry load. It has to move this way, these seamed sections. A bridge too will not bear its own rigid weight. I move and can believe my desire for structured limits, a known threshold. But this shifting ground spikes instincts clear, as fluid as shadows, the river below. I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb. Before you were born, I set you apart and appointed you. Jeremiah 1:5. Too many pictures. We fought in that crap hotel in Santa Fe. I yelled so much over so little, I ended up just yelling at myself. Days later, she was glorious. Her head floating at Ojo Caliente, flushed indignant, even better at not giving up. She wanted to stay and melt. I sat in a corner of the pool on a hot rock and tried not to believe the place, to avoid the supernatural aura draining our savings. The chili tasted like the opposite of magic. We are bad at vacations. And yet, the day after the country cleaves, with the bridge, the John Wayne bullshit, and campgrounds behind us, we are in Las Vegas. Nothing left to hope for but the pleasure of waste, our bodies together in a so-called Japanese tub built for 3, that big American soaking bucket in which you could variously drown or fuck. Long past caring, we play poker at 1 in the morning in a room full of men who ceased dreaming decades ago. To them, she is a mark, an anomaly prolific at the low-stakes table. She hustles them hard so we can make our way back home. To to the rail, out to find surplus in the void, reckoning with my shifting, shaded areas. Nobody is amused by the suicide helpline call boxes. No one thinks too long about them. I prefer they're vandalized, marked with scripture. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. Psalm 139:14. I bring her to the bridge the day before the day we're in Las Vegas. She'll not cross on foot and stays in the truck on the shoulder, which is also a fishing net for a whole anthropological heap of what might have mattered to someone briefly, long enough to dispense its speed. Value systems in the sticks, some mysteries, some forensics, and a whole bunch of trash. There are no stories in these objects, slow tools for gradual departure. There are 6 empty vodka bottles made for the ambitions of airplanes and teenagers. I wonder if we should stay the night. We built a soggy fire. Rather, I built a soggy fire while she watched. All the smoke and none of the heat right at the bottom of the river's big throat. It was great. I couldn't see a damn thing. We shook with the cold in the back of that truck. We are good at camping, even when we do it all backwards. Sleeping near a massive invisible dog that barked and got hit all night long, I knew the fear in that dog. Everyone else can imagine themselves some kind of hero, confronting whatever awfulness lives alone with their entire history in tow. Someone to holler at something terrible, at a man working hard to be erased, measuring pride against the trauma of strangers. There are no police out here who'd give a shit. These are facts I must consider. I am not armed to the teeth. That is an exception, not the rule. I will live in that cowardice. That fashionable blanket we have yet to give up on did nothing all night. We decided to buy sleeping bags in a gun store the size of a casino. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who's going to read next.
Hi. Yeah. We're friends. Yeah, I'm going to read from this book, MW, this new book. It's about a film called The Mother and the Whore, made by Jean Eustache in 1973. And I wrote some dense melancholy prose about it, just right for today. So I'm going to jump into about a third of the way through the book. We've already met Alexandre. He lives with Marie, and he's met a woman named Veronica at a cafe, and they've sort of made a date. And so I'm going to jump into my research. And there's lots of quotes that I'm just going to roll right over. I read all the articles on Eustache I can find online and experience a familiar writerly panic attack. Everything's already been said. Almost everyone calls The Mother and the Whore a masterpiece, the culmination of Eustache's concerns and a bleak vision of the aftermath of '68. Claire Denis and Olivier Assayas cite him as an inspiration. Jim Jarmusch kept a framed photo above his writing desk of Eustache on the set of this beautiful, complicated film we're watching. I discover Pauline Kael's 1974 homage. It took 3 months of editing to make this film seem unedited. A eulogy for Eustache tells the story of a retrospective of his work held in Morocco. The writer, Serge Denis, imagines the heavy film canisters, there would be many for this long movie,
being painstakingly loaded and shipped to the event. Then Eustache, invited but not confirmed as a guest, surprises everyone by showing up and spends 2 days looking at the body of work he'd soon seal with his suicide. And I discover I've missed by a year a retrospective at New York's Metrograph, where I might have seen Le Cochon, the short film in which Eustache and his co-director Jean-Michel Barjol record in documentary fashion the slaughter of a pig. Or 1974's Mes Petites Amoureuses, the follow-up to The Mother and the Whore, and an impressionistic record of the director's youth. And I won't catch Une Sale Histoire, a pair of shorts from 1977, in which the same tale regarding the use of a peephole from a men's bathroom into a women's one is told twice, once as a monologue and again as a fiction. I'm heartened to know that Eustache was interested in repetitions, that he might have welcomed a book in which his movie is represented, in which a voice both embalms and reanimates the object and investigates the process of translation between forms, as slippery as the communication between those obscure galaxies we refer to, for convenience's sake, if you'll forgive the Proustism, as other people. More than a few of the critics who write about The Mother and the Whore struggle to reconcile the movie's power and allure with its seemingly reactionary politics and bleak view of a world in which sexual liberation has led to emptiness rather than fulfillment, and political dreams have washed back ashore to decay in the shriveling glare of individual shortcomings and social deadlock. I'm holding on so far to the twists and turns in the story of these people who are ambivalent about each other, but also determined, as their maker claimed, to try to destroy each other. I'm ambivalent about them too. They can't figure out how to be together, and they fake or recall, but can't really find any lightness. I like lightness and worry it's more necessary than I sometimes think, but I can't often find it. Where does it disappear to? I'm aging, is that it? Or is everything about sex, the city, the future really so grim? I suspect I'll have to say eventually what a livable life might look like without this pretense to charm and romance French movies sold so well that it can be hard to imagine what our desire would look like, stripped of their chic, forever modern garments. I'll move like a movie to the next scene. It's an epic date. They meet at Deux Magots. How free, each asks, is the other, really? Alexandre defers. Veronica says she recently left someone. I cheated on him. I'm very demanding. I always expect too much, and I'm always let down. Alexandre describes a previous relationship in which he lived entirely at night, drinking, gambling, making love, and eventually lost track of the woman he was living with, who led her life in the daytime. Bored at the chicken coop of the cafe, they move on to a restaurant at the Gare du Nord, which Alexandre says he finds cheering because all the people around him are in transit, like an F.W. Murnau film. F.W. Murnau films are always about transition from city to country, day to night. He asks again if he's boring her. She asks if she looks bored. No, but women are such liars. Eve Sedgwick on Proust. The narrator frequently describes his possession of Albertine as suffocatingly boring to him. And then there's the issue of her boredom, whether it's his fear, his delusional fantasy projection, or his well-founded intuition. He pulls out and reads from a self-portrait, an example of Alexandre's ventriloquism. The lines are actually by the writer Jacques Rigaud. He tells Veronica about a Borges story in which a sect of heretics locates ecstasy and boredom in the void. He asks how her food is. Eating cold things, he muses. You taste the cold, not the flavor. When you eat hot things, you taste the heat, not the flavor. When it's something hard, it's the hardness. When it's liquid, you feel the liquidity. So you have to eat lukewarm, soft things. She laughs her lovely laugh. What's a nurse's life like? Repetitive, she reports. Nights at home, she watches TV and showers down the hall while the news is on. He's surprised she doesn't watch the news. Things don't matter much to me, is her blunt explanation. When she goes out to a nightclub, she takes whoever approaches her. I can fuck anyone, but it doesn't last long. I turn a lot of people off. Alexandre considers this and answers wonderfully, that's normal. My neck and shoulders are soft, she says. I have pretty breasts, and I don't like thin thighs on girls, do you? It's a detached appraisal, as if from without. She might as well be calling herself a lukewarm, soft thing. The French novelist Marie Darrieussecq writes of the painter Paula Modersohn-Becker, in Paula's work, there are real women. I want to say women who are naked at long last, stripped of the masculine gaze. Women who are not posing in front of a man, who are not seen through the lens of men's desire, frustration, possessiveness, domination, aggravation. Women in the work of Modersohn-Becker's are neither coquettish, Gerex, nor exotic, Gauguin, nor provocative, Manet, nor victims, Degas, nor distraught, Toulouse-Lautrec, nor fat, Renoir, nor colossal, Picasso, nor sculptural, Puvis de Chavannes, nor ethereal, Carolus Duran, nor made of pink and white almond paste, Cabanel, whom Zola made fun of. With Paula, there's no getting even at all, no signs of rhetoric or judgment. She shows what she sees. A past love on Instagram. The romantic scenarios she concocts, precisely how she changes with time. And then every so often, an image that seems out of order, a flush of youth or a trick of light. Her distinctive voice is absent, of course. I recall it now only in dreams where her avatar remains convincing. And yet somehow the idea of her voice is there in the photos, in the smile, or else the sternness behind her eyes. I'm afraid I once felt exactly like the villainous neighborhood mafioso Michelle Solara in Elena Ferrante's Neapolitan novels. Solara's wife speaks with chilling clarity of the love her husband harbored for the narrator's brilliant friend Lila. He didn't want her in order to have sex with her and then forget her. He wanted the subtlety of her mind with all its ideas. He wanted her imagination, and he wanted her without ruining her, to make her last. He wanted her not to screw her. That word applied to Lila disturbed him. He wanted to kiss and caress her. He wanted to be caressed, helped, guided, commanded. He wanted to see how she changed with the passage of time, how she aged. He wanted to talk with her and be helped to talk. You understand? He claims, above all, to have recognized her. Ferrante describes perfectly an obsession that must repel her to the core. Her heroes, Lila, Elena, and Nino, are a kind of flipped-over Veronica, Marie, and Alexandre. They too find their politics offer little protection against passions, degradations, and the license, flagrant, devastating, assumed by men. We'll stop there.
We're flying right along. We could take a break. You guys want to take a break? I'm into democracy. I'm into like consensus. I'm into like, anybody need to like go to the bathroom or like get some chicken wings at Little Dokebi over here? All right, we're gonna just keep on going. Cool, yeah. Next up we have Joni. I also don't have your book or blurbs to. I'm totally failing at this, which is fine. Joni Murphy.
I haven't done this in a while, not on Zoom. Sorry. Hi, thank you for coming. I wrote a novel called Talking Animals about being an animal and also like having a bad job and living in New York and bad jobs and the end of the world. And it's about a llama and an alpaca who work for City Hall. And it's heavily based on like David Graeber and just end of the world things that we're all living in. Yeah. So, yeah. So I'll just read the beginning. And I start with two quotes. In the dark times, will there be singing? There will be singing of the dark times. Correct. And then people come up to me and ask, why are the llamas humming? He said. And I'll say, because they don't know the words. The city is an island, and an island is a ship that never sails. The city is a vessel for animals. A long time ago, before the island was a city, it was a crumb of land bobbing in an ocean tea. But even then, it was jammed with plants and animals. The island has always teemed with life, moored as it is in a powerful juncture of rivers, the ocean, greater islands, and a whole roiling continent. It is hard now to picture the island of before, in its green spate, crisscrossed by streams and edged by marshes. It is as it has been changed so thoroughly by wave after wave of arrival and violence, construction and reconstruction. But before or after, this place was ever vital. This was never just any old island. It has always been a planet in miniature, a bubble of disordered life. When the outsiders came, they came in messy herds. Foreign birds arrived in flocks, and multitudes climbed from rough wooden crafts, all knees and heaves over the silty rocks. Once grounded, some lay for a long time, crying for beloved friends lost at sea. Others put their grief aside and got straight to business. Whatever the attitude, all newcomers carried some memory, potent or cloudy, of the homes they'd left behind. They hoisted various flags and commenced the same battles that had driven them from their old lands in the first place. More than more arrived. You've never seen such a multitude. Everyone squeezed in and then did it again. So tight did it become that the ground in some areas disappeared beneath the crush of living creatures. The island swayed and creaked, but did not sink because this was a ship of bedrock. Native gulls turned above flocks of European starlings, strategizing in the trees. Their creatures from away brought with them panic. Gruesome histories trailed like a putrid smell. They had firm notions of how life should be lived, and they intended to impose them. The island trembled. Somebody cobbled a street where a soft path had been. Somebody drew a map. Somebody carried out a massacre. Animals tore into one another. They spread diseases and infection. A pool of blood formed, dried up, then turned into flakes that the wind carried away. There is no story of a city that is not also a story of brutality. There is no story of brutality that has not been retold as one of heroism. The invasive species began right away to mythologize themselves. They renamed everything. They got into fights with one another, and whoever won renamed places once again. They built houses, stores, bars, and jails out of the island's trees. The city burned again and again, and they rebuilt it in whatever architectural fashion was current. Everything was brutal and everyone died. The living tore down old buildings and erected new ones in their place. They renamed streets and buildings after their dead, only for the living to die in turn. To repress the psychic chaos that swirled inside, the living turned to numerology. They began to count everything and categorize what they'd counted. Someone measured out the whole island, then divided it with a grid. Grid sent the message that everything was under control. Meanwhile, more arrived and more died. Don't panic, they murmured to one another as they drew out long, straight lines. Once they had the grid on their map, they set about filling every square on the real-life land. They built great halls and courthouses. They built fire stations and granaries. Around the edges, they erected docks and strung bridges. Larger and larger ships kept bringing in more beings and things. Some grumbled because by now they saw themselves not as invasive, but rather as new kinds of native species. The community worked on complicated myths to explain away the violence at the core of their city making. Streets and avenues continued to creep until they covered not just the first island, but surrounding islands as well. See, here a beam, there a reservoir, here a scaffold, there a retaining wall, here a beer hall, there a bakery, here a sweatshop, there an armory, here a train station with vaulted ceilings painted celestial blue, and there a system of grease-black tunnels. The living paved over old cobbling. They numbered and lettered the new trains. After vigorous debate, Helvetica was chosen as the official typeface for all signs. Buildings grew tall, apartments stretched along streets like rows of stalls in a stable. Rooms proliferated inside like cells in a hive. As the cityscape expanded, it also shrank. It came to feel as if the whole population lived together in one big house. Bricks, wallpaper, matted fur, insulation, granite, saliva, glue, Venetian blinds, muds, twigs, vinyl siding, steel beams, they overlapped and merged. Architecture and infrastructure blurred into continuous surface. The great combine creased and flipped so that private was public and public concealed itself in plain view. Looking out might as well be looking in, as building walls made streets into halls. Foyers led to front doors, led to bedrooms with a view of, if one was lucky, the Hudson River or the Kosciuszko Bridge. In summer, sun pounded the sidewalks and the heat intensified the smell of everything. Citizens put plants into pots and put these pots on their sills. Youth leapt into turquoise pools that sat in the middle of emerald parks. Air conditioners hummed dangerously overhead. The city was like a pizza oven, and the inhabitants were greasy little toppings. These toppings felt weak and furious. Vendors sold chili, mango, and ices. Smoke and steam billowed up to join the clouds. The clouds grew tense. Rain fell heavy. The storm cleared up. Everyone felt happy, but then the heat would return, bringing with it fury and fatigue. In late summer, places closed for vacation. Those who could fled. When September would come, school would start and everything would be open and packed once again. Fall was the most beautiful. Then came winter. The first snow was nice, but every subsequent just coated the frozen street filth. The melange melted and refroze, and the city would be miserable for months. Winter lasted half a year or more before the winds blew in spring, when every tree exploded with pollen and flowers. Ginkgo and linden released their funky, creamy perfumes. The island went mad with joy and allergies. The streets stank. Storefronts emitted puffs of salon chemicals and cooking grease, dung and bleach, fungus and air freshener. When crowds on the train pressed together, they released whiffs of cocoa butter and Chanel. Trash piled up. Workers took it away. There was so much stuff that even nice things cycled into the trash. Whoever got tired of their shoes just left them on the stoop. Somebody else would put them on. Preachers threw out whole bedroom sets and decent abstract paintings. Socks, umbrellas, books, and incense could be brought on any street corner. The crush, the wealth, the waste of wealth, all the tight quarters and inward-facing windows made residents obsess over their bodies, their fur and feathered. They ignored seasonal dress and followed instead the Gulf Streams of fashion. Tatters in winter and suits for summer, hornrooms and cornoporfortunas, buffalo plaids and leopard prints, socks and sandals. It all came and went, then returned later, reimagined. Everything was beautiful artifice. Preachers obsessed over the unwritten laws of class, order, family, genus, and species. Mayors and council members chattered among themselves and with bankers. It had to do with ideology. It had to do with money. The city, which was by now a city absolute, was full. One could get whatever one wanted, but walking around the block cost more than whatever you had in your pocket. A few had way too much, some had enough, and many had nothing. Many moved away because they were tired, but plenty stayed because they didn't have enough to leave. Things got violent once again. Though each age seemed as if it would go on indefinitely, the wheel of fortune turned. Outside wanted in afresh, up wanted down. Those who'd fled to live in smaller herds drifted back to join the urban masses. The bubble shifted and shimmered. The city was a mystical chimera that spoke in the voices of multiple animals. It was a teacher, and its core lesson was that all must find peace with their own restless suffering. It also taught restlessness. The city didn't care who was jubilant and who was suicidal. It witnessed without comment. As a great teacher, the city has its true devotees, and they would twist themselves into knots to make sense of their master's riddles. They turned the incomprehensible into a logo, a slogan, a beast, a balloon in the parade. Pressure from within countered that from without in exquisite tension. The city was an impossibility, an impossible yet existing place. It was a real piece of work. Animals from wherever, from everywhere, loved its whole routine. They adored the city enough to wear its name silk-screened on t-shirts. These shirts hailed one another with a greeting that doubled as a warning. Welcome to New York, it read. Now duck, motherfucker.
Can't tell if I love New York, if I want to leave it, but I'm going to leave. All right, next up, Marie Buck, Unsolved Mysteries. Are there people? Three. There are 3 people online as well, so 2. 3 including us.
Hi, thanks so much, Gabe. You guys hear me? Okay. So I'm gonna read a couple poems from Unsolved Mysteries, which came out on Roof in November, and then briefly from something new. The dead. All we're going to do after the revolution is document the lives of the dead. Not the dead we already know about, but the dead we don't know about. We're going to take Jeff Bezos' money, and we're going to document ourselves and our pets, all our affections, our quotidian habits. We're going to document street cats that we didn't take in because we already had pets. We're going to document, on behalf of our pets, all the toys that our pets liked and accidentally destroyed. And maybe socialism will unveil something. Maybe Jeff Bezos' money will mingle with his blood and create an effect. Maybe socialism will undo our deadness so that we might animate our archives and interact as the things we left behind. Me, for instance, as a Katamari ball of poems, but mostly emails facilitating the publication of academic articles, i.e. my day job, of bills paid, of bizarrely intimate texts with people met online, of graduate school papers about poetry I no longer like, of an embarrassing and neurotic Google history that wonders at various ages about the health of my bowels, the relative attractiveness of my genitals, the addictions of family and friends, about how to find memes that I can no longer find, about how Pasolini was killed, about the etiquette for sending sympathy notes. So that is the body that would get picked back up, and it could go around and find the others, the archives of my friends and lovers and pets from across time. I would find my childhood dogs, I would pet them. I would find the goldfish that got trapped at the top of the fish tank and cooked under the light. When I had gotten used to things a bit and was ready, I would find my loves across time, here in the form of animated G-chats. I'd suck on the shoulders of the G-chats. I'd be really toppy with them. I'd leave them for my friends, and my friends and I would tease each other about our archive bodies, about the things we'd Googled, the way our texts fit together to create new versions of our mouths. Let's take Jeff Bezos' money and use it to live forever. And then this one is it's called Hot Jock Shot Wad from Wisconsin, 1185, Saturday the 3rd. And kind of the premise of the book is that, do you guys remember Unsolved Mysteries as a show? So if you don't, it was a show, it was on in the late 80s and early 90s, and dealt with mysterious deaths, among other things. But this is in reference to one of the episodes, one of the people whose death was documented on it. So Hot Jock Shot Wad from Wisconsin, 1185, Saturday the 3rd. In 1985, Dexter Stefanik, a 78-year-old man, is killed while traveling from Oregon to Wisconsin. It's winter. He chooses to save time by stopping at rest stops to sleep. Hot Jock shot wad from Wisconsin, 1185, Saturday the 3rd, is written on the rest stop bathroom wall. A cryptic phrase, maybe a clue. Police discover it months after they discover Dexter Stefanik's car burning. Just after his body is discovered at a county dump, his shoes hanging out of a pile of garbage. His legs, his body, hidden frozen within the pile. According to the internet, and also to the office of Orrin Hatch, who was mocked online for using the phrase publicly in August 2017, shot your wad comes from the Civil War era and refers to shooting a plug of cloth rather than a bullet from a musket, i.e. an ineffective shot, a shot where you fucked up and wasted it. But we all know that if you write on a bathroom wall that somebody has shot their wad, you're probably referring to coming. Maybe to masturbation rather than to sex, but the musket is definitely a dick. There's even more mystery though. The dates are wrong. Dexter Stefanik's car was found burning on November 19th, 1985, not November 3rd. November 3rd then must have marked a parallel, a time split. A hot jock from Wisconsin shot his wad in the bathroom stall, possibly into the mouth of another man, possibly into the hand of another man, possibly into their own hand, wishing for a different hand, a hand that wasn't theirs and that was therefore less predictable, and that would have taken away the burden of being in control of each motion, of getting oneself to come as opposed to being made to come. Being made to come is not always better, but in a bathroom stall in Montana in the winter, I think it is better. In this scenario, someone refers to himself as hot jock, which seems surprising. Perhaps this was intended as a seed. Suggest on a bathroom wall that there is sometimes a hot jock there, and then perhaps there will be. Orrin Hatch was mocked for saying that other Republicans had shot their wad with regard to a series of defeated healthcare bills. The healthcare bills sought to make healthcare even shittier, to make life in the relationship to one's body even more difficult, so that it would be less and less likely that one could sadly, or agitatedly, or happily, or thoughtlessly shoot one's wad in a restroom stall, and more likely that one would, like Dexter Stefanik, be kidnapped and shot twice and left at an icy garbage dump. In this world, the world in which we lose healthcare and other services even more quickly than we are, it is definitely more likely your car will be set on fire, your foot will be spotted sticking out from under an old couch, your body will no longer be animated. A friend got caught by a cop writing Bernie would have won in a rest stop bathroom. That is, casting a spell. That world would be a different world. There are many possible worlds, some better, some worse than that phrase would suggest. In one world, everyone is sad about the deaths of their loved ones, but cross-country trips do not exist. Montana does not exist. Springtime does not exist. In this world, you don't have to jerk yourself off, but you're not jerked off by anyone else either. You can touch your dick yourself, or you can thrust it into the world, and the world manifests not as loose air, but as a sloppy, wet mouth, a rectum, spit-covered labial folds, a spongy, warm pocket, a small calloused hand. You thrust into the world, you the hot jock, and you shoot your wad. My current favorite memory to shoot my wad to is a man pulls out to avoid coming, to keep lasting and make a game of it, but cannot help but come accidentally, sitting in front of me with his legs folded underneath him, thighs shaking, spurting into a condom without touching himself or me. Just a dick, not being touched, no longer inside of anything, quivering and filling a condom head. This man was definitely not Dexter Stefanik, since Dexter Stefanik is dead. But this man came into the ether, suggesting the possibility of a world in which Dexter Stefanik would never have died. The theory of the homunculus, a 16th century speculation about how a fetus came to be, suggested that cum was composed of tiny men, tiny little humans. So in shooting our hot wads, we're shooting out people, little men who might escape the condom, not to cream on a hand or in an ass, but instead to populate the world, to fill it with tiny helper elves. Helper elves who would have, as Dexter Stefanik shot his wad in the rest station bathroom, left the restroom, stopped the killer, a man of at least 6 feet with a pale complexion who was later seen pulling up behind Stefanik's empty car. The homunculi might have restrained the killer, whispering warnings into his ears, and when he did not heed these warnings, chomped into his flesh repeatedly until he melted into the snow and dissolved into the bellies of the homunculi, strengthening them for more good deeds. In this world, Dexter Stefanik lives another couple years, shooting wads where he likes, quivering and coming, driving across the isolated stretch from Oregon to Wisconsin over and over again. Okay, and I'm gonna read one thing from a longer, as yet untitled new thing. If you're carrying it with you, for instance, an unspilled tear welling in the corner of your eye, a recording of your laugh that makes you both happy and uncomfortable, a story as it's told 3 times over, the story being one that is of only minor interest to anyone else, but that sounds a note of pride for you, the happy bits of joke pinged back and forth, and when one drops the volley, the dropping itself becomes incorporated. Itself can be served and returned to the other so that both parties feel delight. Do you want to locate these objects on a set of keys so that when the keys are lost, one party tells the other, outside, at a fireworks display, and later when the keys are found, that one again tells the other, this time by text, though there is no pretext here. The only possible pretext is a desire to show one's daily events to another. This text is received with delight. And after that, it might be located on this blanket in the park, or in the mirror as the mirror, which reflects a crotch, as we follow it with our eyes, which themselves can meet in the mirror, creating a sort of net. Or here again as you wake in sweat, as one curls up and the other curls up too. I explain a movie, The Old Dark House, the scene where a creepy old woman intimidates the young heroine about her clothes. Fine stuff, she says, but it'll rot. And then the old woman pokes at the young woman's chest, at her glowing skin. Finer stuff still, but it'll rot too. I explain this as I overhear someone in a cafe singing her dog song to her dog, describing the dog and its specificity as a way to show love. Shiny yellow body, reddish head, a lovely coat. So that I pause in my description of the film that hopes to capture death and the threat of it. And meeting the gaze of one, I overhear another as she serenades her pet. It is good to describe it, sitting next to one another rather than across, hoping for large glasses of icy water rather than the little orange juice glasses that you have access to when water is communal and help yourself. What is it that you're bearing witness to? Another's existence. And how was your day? And give a long answer. And how was yours? And then that answer too is long. So that what is being described is the going beyond one's body. How was your day? And how was yours? Okay, thanks so much.
I have almost nothing further to say, besides thank you all for coming here and to the readers. I will say that next month, Stacy Zamazik's book will be coming out on Archway Editions, which is very cool. And Alice Notley, a book of drawings. Maybe you've seen some of those on the internet. What else? Oh, and we're gonna do another one of these. I won't be reading. I just wanted to do one where I got to like be in front of people with my book. Done it, so I don't have to do it again. But we will next month in June. I'll let you know. I hope to see you all here. Bring friends, bring drinks, bring snacks, bring blankets, bring yourselves. All right. Do you have anything to say? No? All right. I would love to hang out and chat with everyone. And Little Joke Heavy has great wings. So I'm going to plug that again. All right. Thanks. Did you? No. You looked at me like, oh, books. Buy them from us. Buy them from bookstores. Nat has books. I have books. Buy the books. Thanks.
My Chico queen, she cooking refried beans, said she waiting for me today. Yeah, stopped on off a liquor store, made everybody lay down on the floor. I took all the whiskey, I took their bread, then I shot out the lights.